In today's episode, Betsy and I are going to be talking about her journey through her art practice and how it has developed into a very intuitive practice that she has been able to allow herself to explore in various forms. It is so inspiring to hear Betsy talking about how she has developed her language of symbolism over time and how she has allowed herself to grow a positive mindset and how this has influenced her practice. I know you're going to find so many nuggets of wisdom in this episode, and I can't wait for you to join us. So let's get into it.
Gotta get messy and show the world you growing as an artist. And you're free to be yourself. You got a dream, you need to start it. Stick together. Get messy says you're formally invited to a community where you can find people that spark the feel of excitement. Too many art supplies, not enough time. No, it's tougher, so you must find a way to feel some connection. We got a lot of people with the same kind, a great mind. We here for you, a platform so we can hear your views. Time's yours, forget chores. I know you bored of them same rules.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Get Messy podcast episode. I'm so excited to be talking to Betsy today, and I know that you are going to enjoy this discussion. So, Betsy, thank you so much for saying yes to joining me for the podcast. And would you perhaps like to introduce yourself to those that are listening today?
Sure. I'm Betsy Walton. I'm an artist. I've been working on my studio practice probably about 20 years at this point, almost. Next year is my 20th year since getting started. I live in Portland, Oregon. I have 3 children, and I'm back to work a little bit more full-time for the first time since I had my kids this year. So that's been really fun. I moved into a new studio, and so I'm in kind of a fun phase right now.
I love that you're getting back to it after the kids phase, right? I think a lot of us need to remind ourselves it's just a season and it's going to pass eventually, and you'll have so much time you don't know what to do with, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
once
there
once
yet,
the kids have left.
Yeah, yes, that's the one. Yeah, we're not there yet, but they're, my older kids are about to turn 13. I have twins, so we're entering a different stage.
Yeah. Twins is fun.
Yeah. So they're really fun. They're super fun. They're creative. They're quirky and just getting bigger. They're almost as tall as me, which is weird. So they can wear my clothes now.
I love that. Yeah, teenager phase is always a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to tell us about your 20-year journey? Where did you start, and how has your practice changed over the course of 20 years?
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in Kansas, near Kansas City, and there was a big, I think it was like a Impressionists painting show that came through the museum in Kansas City, and so I really loved seeing that. And we had books and stuff. My mom was into art and design. She went to architecture school. And she's always been a big design kind of person. And so I got really curious about it. And the paintings, I feel like when I saw paintings in those books, I was like, I want to know, how do you do this? And I just got very curious and inspired. And then I, took art classes and stuff as a kid. And then when I started high school, I started working on some classes with a teacher who was really influential on me, a fabulous drawing teacher. She taught me like 95% of everything I know about drawing, I think. So she made a big impact on me, and there were a lot of kids from this school in Lawrence, Kansas, going to some of the best art programs for college, and going to Cooper Union and going to other Pratt and all the New York art schools, and then just many of them. And I got inspired by that, and there was kind of she had a real magnetism to her, and it kind of connected with my pre-existing interests. And so that's kind of how I ended up at art school. I went to Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design in Wisconsin, and it's a small school, like 500 students. At the time, I think it's bigger now, maybe 550. And I started out as a drawing major, and then I changed into printmaking, and I learned a lot through that as well. I will say I was not amazing at it, but it was because it's hard with like registering, and you'd have to be pretty precise, and I just wasn't that great at that. Also, I wasn't that interested in doing the same thing over and over. So I kind of figured out how to make it my own by doing monotype, and so that was a cool experience and really taught me a different way of thinking about images and layers. When I learned drawing, that was a lot more about working with relationships between things that you see. So like what's darker, what's lighter, what has a hard edge, what has a soft edge, and really strengthening those observational skills, and then figuring out how to use your media to kind of create that. So it was a really strong observational drawing and painting background. And we did figure drawing in high school and stuff. So I did a lot of that. And then printmaking kind of came in sideways for me, where I was like, I don't understand this, how I'm supposed to like make a whole image into these distinct layers. Like I was very confused about it for most of the time I was in there. But since then, having done some digital work and stuff, it makes more sense to me now. And I think I kind of fuse those two perspectives in my painting now. I use a lot of layers, and I kind of somehow now it works for me. After I got done with college, I worked at a bank for a while, and then we moved to, with my husband, we moved to Portland, Oregon from Milwaukee. And then I think about 2005, I stopped, and I also worked for an art school. I did some kind of administrative jobs, office jobs for a few years. And then I was able to stop doing that and just work in my studio full time. I was very, very, I guess I would say, anxious maybe, or just like I didn't really think that highly of what I was doing. And so, but we had a lot of friends in the illustration space and designers. My husband's a graphic designer, and that was kind of our community. And so I was really excited because I had some really supportive people around me that were kind of helped me build my confidence. And then it happened to be right around when the internet was getting going with like Flickr. It's pretty old school, but like I would just post at that stage. I would try to post a drawing a week, like a small one, like an 8x10 or something, not a lot. And I started doing that, and then eventually I started selling prints and stuff in Etsy shops. And I was doing gallery shows, a lot of group shows, mostly. And that kind of got the ball rolling. And then I kind of kept at working on those small paintings for a while, a few years, before I started stretching my wings a little bit more. So, yeah. And I think over time, like I actually happen to have just gone through like a lot of my older work that I still have in my studio. So I'm like in the last few weeks, and I can see the roots of things. And now, after many years of repetition and just refining and pushing things a little further, I can see kind of the here to there. And it's been really interesting to see how I did, I made one little painting with like some triangular shapes in it and some plants. And then I just kept iterating over the years, kind of on similar ideas. And it just took me to this place where I am now, which is cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And I was thinking it was so interesting when you were saying the printmaking, because immediately I thought, oh, that's where the layers come from, right? So it makes me quite curious about the idea of maybe trying different techniques and styles that don't feel comfortable, but might have an influence in how you create or what you create later on. So there is a bit of merit to trying things that are maybe outside of your comfort zone.
For sure. I think, yeah, I mean, if you're, I think you have to be a little bit uncomfortable to learn things, and to like see something new. You don't want to be too uncomfortable, but a little bit uncomfortable. Everyone has to kind of feel that for themselves. But I think that, in retrospect, it was, I think, a good choice. I remember at the time thinking, well, I could do drawing, but I've already I don't know anything about this other thing, and I'm curious about it. And so I think following that curiosity was good.
A lot of your work has got symbolism and a lot of sort of deep-rooted meaning in it. How have you developed that vocabulary over time, or has that been something that you've sort of naturally always had in your art making?
It took me some time to kind of land on that and get to feel like I had a footing. I think in my drawing when I was like in high school and college, it was more like the technical side I was really focused in on, and learning how to make this silver teapot look silver and stuff, like really technical stuff mostly. I did take a class called interpretive drawing that the same teacher taught, which was a little bit more symbolic oriented, symbolically focused. And we looked at Marc Chagall, and that's like the main one I remember. Maybe Paul Klee or some other artists that did more expressive drawing or more symbolic, like not so representational. And I liked that. I've always been interested in like dreams and poetry and like those type of kind of natural human inclinations that don't totally make sense, but they resonate with you. And when you find something that connects with you, it feels really kind of mysterious, but also comforting. So that kind of headspace was always appealing to me. Visually, it took me a while to kind of get that figured out. I went on a study abroad to Florence, Italy, and we did a whole, the focus of it was looking at all the Renaissance painters, and I had to do a presentation, a research paper about Ghirlandaio, who was painting frescoes, and talk about the symbolism that was used in all of those paintings in the, they were in the churches, and there was a whole visual language, symbolic language during that time that they were using in those paintings. So I kind of got that kind of nudged me along the way a little bit more too. And then once I was done with school and I was like starting out thinking about making my own work and really kind of trying to make a run for it, I was I had to ride the bus for a while to get to this job I had, and I would just spend the whole bus ride drawing. And I didn't have other space really in my schedule for it, so I would just spend the whole bus ride drawing. And I just tried not to be too judgmental about it. And I felt like I was kind of going back to like a square one sort of place. Like, how do I want to do this? I'm not in school anymore. I don't have people around me telling me what to do, or so I have to kind of find that, find what I want to work on, what visual language I want to use. And so that was a really helpful period where I just did the kind of free association sketchbook time. And that kind of transitioned a little bit more, transitioned into more me just trying to really follow my own interests. And it was hard because I think in school and just as a person and kind of my family background, like trying to have your stuff figured out was really important. And I had to really work at being comfortable with not knowing what I was doing and just letting it unfold. And, you know, from this point where I am now, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense and I can see how it's all connected. But at the time I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It was kind of scary and challenging. I didn't want to show anything to anyone. I didn't want to, like, I was like, I don't even know what this is. So it took a while to kind of get through that, but little by little, as I started taking a little bit more risks of sharing with people and getting good feedback, that helped me stay motivated and kind of keep going.
It sounds like you were on a journey of finding your voice again.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much, I would say that's exactly what it was. And kind of taking the skills that I had learned and figuring out how to use them in a way that was also like felt really personally, like I felt some conviction around. But also trying to keep the mystery alive, because a big thing that drives me is painting and making images is not knowing what's going to happen. So if I know what's going to happen before I start it, I don't really want to do it. So it's not fun for me.
Is that something that you've had to learn over time? You know, how to sort of work very intuitively and be able to sort of just let your piece of art guide you? Or was that something that you were very naturally inclined towards?
I mean, I think maybe naturally inclined towards, but also I did have to work on it. I had to work through, like, you know, you have different voices in your head saying like, don't do, like, I have one thing that will, you know, I get an image in my mind of something, and then I have another part of my mind that's like, that is very weird, do not paint that. And so I have to kind of toggle between those two modes. But usually over time with experience, what I noticed was when I did take the risk to kind of do this thing that felt a little bit edgier, that usually was more exciting, and it led to better quality painting and more, you know, and the, you know, it's a little bit more thrilling to be working on. And I learned more from taking those risks. I think just trusting myself has been, you know, that's one big part of this journey, is trusting that and not being like, well, that doesn't make sense, or why are you, like, I kind of, this is one space, my painting studio practice is where I feel like I can have that freedom. Other parts of my life are, you know, more, I don't know, limiting. So I like to kind of preserve this area for where I can take those creative risks and explore.
Yes, I love the words that you use to describe your art making. We've got mystery and we've got thrilling, and yeah, I think it makes sense that you want to have those things within your life, and so your creativity and your practice is a space where you can express that without having to sort of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Something upset the apple cart, right? Especially if
Yeah.
you've got children, and as a mom, you've got to have everything in place and keep everybody's schedule in check
Yeah.
and make
Yeah.
sure that food's
Yeah.
happening at the right time. And,
Mhm.
it's like, as you say, it's very limiting and organized. So
Yeah.
to have a space where you can just let loose is, I think, really important.
Yeah, it has been really important. I also I think that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I remember when I was working in my studio that it was at the early days, I was listening to a lot of Zen podcasts, lots of Zen, like Dharma talks.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was a lot of work I was doing around how am I orienting around my fear of doing, of making my work. And that was very helpful, and it's still something it's not, that doesn't go away really, but just through practice, kind of giving myself a container where I can take risks, and it just feels really good. It helps me feel more alive and not as much
Yes.
just like ground in the grind of getting the kids off to school and so on.
Yeah. And I think it's really special to have found something in your life that, as you say, helps you to feel alive, right? That gets you out of bed and has you excited about something that's happening in your day, just getting to your studio and being able to create.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
Recommend.
Yes. So, what does your practice look like? Have you got a daily practice that you like to try and stick to?
Yeah, right now I'm in like crunch time for this show I have in April. So I'm coming in, and it's usually best if I don't get in my email and do all that stuff in the morning. So I actually write up right now. I get up at 5:45 and I write. And I do like the artist way writing practice.
Mm.
Um, and then from like 6:30 until 9, I'm dealing kids breakfast and whatever, all that stuff, and exercise.
Oh, okay.
The exercise
Yes.
nowadays. And I then by the time I get to my studio, this was hard for me at first because I in my fantasy world I can just go to my studio first thing in the morning and just work then. That's when I feel like the clearest, and I don't have all the other stuff that happened during the day sort of cluttering up my mind. But that's not realistic when you have 3 children. So I now, but when I get into my studio finally at like 9 or 10 in the morning, I like to try to just start painting faster, like as soon as I can. And if I'm not on like a tight production schedule, I'd like to do more just art journaling time for like 15, 30 minutes or something, where I'm just exploring and there's no agenda on those. And then after that, then working on whatever the project is that I'm doing at the time. So I'm doing 12 paintings right now for the show in April. Hopefully I finish all 12. And they are for my starting point for this one are the 12 houses in astrology. So each painting will be on the theme of those houses, but very loose and kind of interpreted through my birth chart and whatever other things come up while I'm working on them. So that's what I'm working on now, and that's really fun. I have a bigger studio now, so I can work on a bigger scale and see everything at once. Yeah, so that feels very luxurious right now. And yeah, so does that, I think I covered
Yes.
that.
Oh, that's beautiful. So what I'm wondering is the exercise. I love that you're doing some exercise every day. Do you find that your mind has got space to wander and sort of think about creative ideas while you exercise?
I mean, I don't really, I'm usually like filling my ear. It's like music. I have like music playing and I'm like trying to just get through it. Because I mean, I feel so much better afterwards, but I don't usually think too much painting related stuff. That will happen during journaling in the morning and also just like random times where I'll get a little hint of like an idea that I want to try. I think in the artist way, I did a book group last spring, like a virtual one. The second, there's like a new artist way book that came out. And in that one, you're supposed to, she would recommends that everyone takes a 20-minute walk with no music, no dog, no nothing. And I'm usually either have music or the dog. So,
Yes.
you know, so I haven't really done that as much, although I feel like that's where that would come up if I get there someday.
I'm asking because my strategy is when I am exercising is I have this idea that I'm allowing the movement of whatever exercises I'm doing to almost move the energy in my body so that it can flow better when I am making art. So as I'm working out, even if I've got music in my ears, if I'm moving my arms, I'm like consciously telling myself I'm moving the energy in my arms so that I can create later. So I'm constantly sort of making a point of telling my body we're moving that energy.
That's cool. I like that. I'm
That's
going to
my
try that.
strategy.
Yeah, I like that. I do feel like after I exercise, there's a level, it's like it's more quiet internally. I'm not feeling as many like urgent feelings of I have to think about this or whatever. It's a little more calm, which is nice.
It's more zen in there, right? It just you've got that zen. Yeah. So I think what I've realized is we sit and we create a lot, or we stand in one spot and create. And so I feel like the energy almost turns stagnant in us.
Yeah.
And so you have to make a conscious decision that you're going to move to just get that energy flowing again so that you can get back at it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, and also just like it can be painful so many hours doing and like too often I'm in a posture that's not recommended, in there just like really tight and my back is not in a good place. So I think it's the multiple layers of like being stuck that could be happening. So that's interesting to think about.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I'm interested in when you were talking about the 12 houses is there research? How much research are you doing during a painting or a series of paintings or before you start the series? Do you sort of focus on trying to research different ideas and topics, or does it just sort of naturally evolve?
I mean, it naturally evolves. I definitely listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm working or audiobooks. So it sinks in that way. But for this project, I'm doing a little more intentional kind of research. And it's kind of a new practice for me on this one where it's a little bit tighter focus and there's like this framework underneath it that I'm kind of trying to incorporate and also improvise based on. So, but yeah, I have like books and notes and drawings of how things, and it's like the puzzle part of my brain, like I love puzzles, doing like jigsaw puzzles and other kinds of stuff. So that part of my brain really likes this because there's so many interconnections between the different houses and where your planets are and all of that. Like I really enjoy just kind of seeing all the different connections. And I've been more interested in tarot in the last few years. So that's also kind of playing in. It's almost like these paintings I'm working on are like big giant tarot cards. So it's been really fun. And I think lately I've had more acceptance of the idea that sometimes I'm going to be in like a pure improvisation mode, and other times I'm going to be able to do something that's a little more focused and structured. And not that the other stuff isn't focused, but just again, I think the structure underneath, and that there's a place for both of those kind of practices in my world. So they just make different kinds of paintings. I remember a phase where I was like, this is not like a math problem. Like this is a different, that there's not going to be one answer that's going to arise and you're going to be like, I figured it out before I made it. I mean, often when the painting is done, I have a sense of resolution around it. Like this feels complete, but there's no formula for it. And, but there's ways to like increase your engagement with it, and just following those associations is a huge part of it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting. Yeah. Because what I've sort of tried to start implementing in my practice is just doing 30 minutes of research a day on a topic that interests me. Because I feel like I'm at a stage where I want to grow my visual vocabulary and my understanding behind certain imagery and things. And so I feel like I'm at a point where I need to consciously try and learn again. So I just set a timer for 30 minutes and just go down a rabbit hole every day.
Love it. I love that. I think that's, I've been, I relate to that a lot. I think earlier when I was getting started, it was more about how do I manage this media and how do I combine things in a painting. And, but as I've gotten older, it's more, I want to go deeper into this too. All types of things. Like I love a like pop science podcast, or like a thing about, how do the neurons work in your brain, or like just all that kind of stuff. I like on just, I'm curious about it, but then it also kind of can trickle into my work because I can use those visual cues or like associations in the paintings. So I've kind of tried to follow those research threads.
I think it makes your work a lot richer, right? Because there's so many different layers of meaning. As you're saying, you could be listening to a podcast about neurons and it sort of trickles into your work. And I think it's really exciting to think about the origin of ideas and where they can lead you if you just allow the space for them to develop.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of see it's really like this collaboration between like my subconscious mind and sort of like the ambient environment I'm in, like what I'm soaking in around me, and then what's going on in my life, and the astrology is really fun because it's like all these different containers, and there's the 11th house containers for groups, and I'm like, yes, I love that. I want to think about that as it's that organized part of my brain kind of coming in with the more intuitive, and it's a really fun space to be in now. I learned a couple of years ago that my Enneagram type is a 4-5. So it's like the 4 is like more about authenticity and emotional stuff and creativity, and then the 5 is like a data driven organizing type. So actually, I think that had I not learned that, I don't know if I would be doing this series that I'm working on right now, because it really gave me like some permission to bring these two sides of my personality together into my practice in a way that I hadn't been doing before. So that was really cool thing that happened the last couple of years. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. Because it's fascinating how something like it might seem insignificant in that moment, like knowing what your personality type is, or what you're more drawn to, or whatever it might be. But then just knowing that about yourself can completely change your practice.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much self-discovery that's involved in my work too, that it's all kind of, it's like the space where I'm kind of working a lot of that out. And also doing something else that's mysterious. So it's not only about that, but it's part of it. And so yeah, it feels good to be able to have this place where I can, I don't know, combine all the alchemy of all the different things that I'm so fascinated with.
Oh, yeah. I love that. So for someone that is maybe wanting to work more intuitively and be able to let go of the constraints, if I can put it that way, of what traditional art would look like, what are some suggestions that you would have for someone that's just starting out on that journey?
I feel like just setting a timer and having a daily practice is huge. Or, however close you can get to a daily practice, like having a timer, and then also looking at a lot of art. I feel like I also, during early and still now, just looking, there's so much available now with the internet, of course, so you can see so many different approaches and things, and kind of cataloging, like saving things that speak to you is important, I think, and kind of noticing what they are. And during those like regular sessions, working hard to just like realize you're going to not like some of the things you're making, but that's okay, because it's a long game. It's not about what you did the one day. It's a longer arc of exploration, and it might take a while. And I also think it's hard not to put too much pressure on yourself to like make it a certain way, or to feel like you've done something good or worthwhile. And working through that is really important too. I think it took me a while to realize that like the more sort of like healthy and kind of growth mindset I could have about my work, the better. I mean, I think I was naturally curious, so the curiosity drives me a lot to like explore more things. But like the idea of like making art from this like tortured psychological place is not, I do not recommend that. I think trying to find a way to feel more trusting and more safe with what you're doing, but still taking risks, some kind of combination of those things, and your curiosity is kind of what I've had experience with that feels good to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of coming from a positive space, right? It just feels like the energy that you're going to be putting into your art is going to be an energy of growth rather than an energy of fear, because fear for me
Mhm.
feels very stifling,
Yeah,
and yeah, I feel like it's going to just keep you very tight and not allow you to have the space to explore and express yourself.
yeah, yeah. And then when you're kind of in more rigid space, it's hard to make a new choice and do
Mm.
a different thing that you might learn from, or you might be like, oh, I really like this like half square inch of, or it's centimeter of area on my page. And the other rest of it I don't like, but there's one little part that I do like.
Mm.
Um, and kind of, yeah, working on, I mean, I'm always still working on just like, how can I be kinder to myself and how can I kind of like lower the stakes a little bit and feel like, and sort of take the pressure off so that your intuition feels, safe to be heard and
Mm.
acted on. Because if it's, you're all like, oh, this has to be good and I have to prove everything, it's going to be a not as enjoyable experience and harder.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. And it's so nice to hear you saying, after 20 years on this creative journey, saying, I'm still working at it, right? Because I think a lot of people that are new to creative practices sometimes feel like, I wonder when I'm going to get to that point where I'm not going to feel X, Y, Z, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's nice to know that it's completely normal to still have feelings that you are battling or trying to always sort of counterbalance with a different perspective. And there isn't ever a point where you're going to arrive at this magical place where everything's just going to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when you're making something new, you're taking a risk. So
Mm.
that risk is always, it's always in there. And if you're vulnerable in your practice and you want to do, if you, that's important. I mean, you can like make a like perfectly shaded sphere for, or if, I don't know. So I'm just trying to think of like a project where there's like a lot of technical, but not as much
Mm.
vulnerability. That's another way you can be, and it's valid. It just depends on what practice, what the practice
Mm.
is in your life, I guess, and in your orientation towards the world, and if it's so. Yeah, I have not arrived at the point where it's not scary yet. So it's still scary.
I think I think it should always stay a little scary. Personally, I think it
Yeah.
should stay a little scary because it means that you are still pushing boundaries. You're still trying to see how far you can take an idea or push a medium. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think you should aim to stay just a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the other hand, too, if you do something really safe, there's a risk in that where you're
Mm.
not um, experiencing what the journey of the exploration would be like, and all the things new
Mm.
roads you could go down after you've explored something new, and it didn't work, or only part of it worked, or you hated the whole entire process. And sometimes I'll hate a whole thing, but then I'm like, oh, I have to figure out how to do this myself
Mm.
in a way that I like doing it. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier when we were talking about what your daily schedule looks like, and
Hmm.
you were saying that if you weren't working on a show or pieces
Yeah.
that have to have a deadline, you would like to ideally have spent 30 minutes working in your journal or some kind of
Hmm.
exploration.
Yeah.
How does that um, is that sort of a space where you then cultivating new ideas and starting to play with new mediums? Is it just
Yeah.
sort of free play?
Yeah. All right. So play is a huge thing that I haven't mentioned so far, but yes, I would be playing in there, and on my regular paintings. Um, that's a huge part. of the process. And I think the sketchbook and journals are a nice place to be able to do that. And I used to be, like I was saying, when I started, I would work on one painting a week. And now I have like so many paintings. I have a lot of loose paintings on paper that aren't really finished. I have 5 sketchbooks. I have the paint, I have a lot of open threads, open loops going at once. And yeah, this past year I was getting more into watercolor. I had sort of a block around watercolor. I was like, that's too hard and it's too the a big breakthrough for me was starting to work with this acrylic gouache because of the layering capability of it and the opacity and how fast it dries, and it doesn't feel as plasticky as sometimes acrylic can feel. So I'm very like, I have a lot of conviction about using that media, but then this last year I kind of started getting more interested in watercolor, and I watched Helen Dardick painting with watercolor and listened to her talking about which supplies she uses and stuff. So I got on this little rabbit hole with that. And so I've been using that in my sketchbook. Journaling and smaller drawings like works on paper that are watercolor influenced. So then kind of trying to get it into my paintings, but it's a little tricky because it's so delicate. So I'm kind of trying to figure that out. And so that's been really fun. So it's a place to explore. It's still that practice that I started doing a long time ago where I'm just kind of maintaining like as much as I can, kind of a non-judgmental, like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And what kind of helps me is I just think about the one thing I'm doing right then. I'm just like, oh, I think I want to get a light blue pencil out and draw this kind of mark. And I just do that. And then I do that until I don't want to do it anymore. And then I'm still having in my head this argument about like, well, if you use a light blue pencil, that's not, what is that going to do? Where are you going to go with this? How is that going to work in the whole thing? And so I still have to kind of fight that sort of voices in my head, but it is really helpful to me to have something to listen to that takes my part of my brain is listening to that thing, and that it takes that kind of judgmental voice out of my head a little bit more, and then I can kind of get more lost in the detail of what I'm doing. So that's a strategy that's worked for me pretty well with dealing with that that pesky inner critic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Drowning him out with something else, someone else's voice.
Just figure this other stuff out. I don't need you to tell me this is a bad idea. And I've also done things like where I've had to because I can get pretty frozen by sort of that analysis paralysis of am I doing the right, is this painting going, like whatever, like feeling like I can't figure it out. And so sometimes I've done in the past, I will actually write down all of the things that my inner critic is saying or wants to say, and then I look at it and I'm like, that is over the top. Like, you really need to, kind of chill out a little bit, because it can be just so intense. And then that usually allows me, like if it's really persistent, lets me kind of put it aside once I've been like, okay, tell me all the reasons this is a bad idea. And then I hear all of that, and then I can kind of be like, okay, I think I can still get the light blue pencil out and do those marks, even though you're worried about all this other stuff. And so those little moments, like stringing those little moments together where I'm thinking about just the light blue pencil, and then I finish with that and I get bored, and then I'm like, okay, maybe orange line or whatever, and then I do the orange line. And it's really that like granular just like one foot in front of the other. And then over time, it builds.
And I think that is something that you learn, right? You have to learn to not try and think too far ahead, and not think, okay, once I've used the blue, I'm going to use the orange, and then this, and this, and you sort of step by step yourself already. So I think it must have been a process for you to have learned to, I'm focusing on this moment and this color.
Yeah, I think so. And it's not, I don't remember being taught that in school, because I mean, I don't know. It was more, the emphasis was more on like, think about what you want to make and make a proposal of what you're going to make, and then do the proposal. And then if your work doesn't match your proposal, then that's a bad thing. That's kind of the model I had in school and college and stuff. And that was just really stressful and hard, and I didn't like it. So it was like, I abandoned that for the most part. But now I've kind of come around again, where I'm like, okay, now I can sort of see where like having the structure is helpful, but I am still kind of negotiating like, how much structure am I going to use? Like, I'm going to rebel against, like, I love to make a rule and then just be like, I'm not going to follow that rule. So that's kind of a weird little journey I go on in my own head about like, this time I'm going to make it like this. And then I'm like, actually, I hate that. I still hate that. I still hate that process. So I'm not going to do that. So.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting that you mention about having the end product in mind, because I can see with my daughters at this stage, they love their art lessons, but very much like, before the project starts, they have to have a clear, this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. And it really stresses them out when it's not going the way they had planned, right? They get in the car and they're like, I spent the whole time trying to fix it, trying to make it look like it was supposed to, So I think it's hard for a teacher to teach this idea of just follow the process. So it makes sense that they have this structure that they have to work in, but it does create a disappointment when you've got an expectation that you're not being able to achieve.
Yes. And that was definitely part of it, is not being able to execute the vision I would have. But also there was kind of a manufacturedness to it. I mean, I think with kids, or with like a more limited kind of like class where it's like, you're going to make something black and white. Like, I feel like those limitations can be really helpful. But in school, it was like, you have to come up with your idea. And there were like so many layers of like, I have to come up with an idea that's going to land well with my teacher, then that's going to land well with the critique, and I have to be able to execute it well. And that, it was like, it's so big. It was such a big ask at the time. And so dialing it back and starting really small with like just the art journaling really helped me kind of rein in those big, scary expectations about like making a series that all connects and stuff, when I was at that earlier stage. So yeah, I think it still comes back to that, like, can you be free to feel free and safe enough to kind of explore what interests you, and not feel like you have to perform for like a whole world.
Yep. At that tightrope, right? Finding that balance.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go back to when you were talking about those negative feelings that sort of can snowball in your mind, and how intense and real they can be, right? And I love that you were saying you just take a moment to just check in and say, like, okay, just what is everything that I'm hearing? What is it that I'm feeling? And then being able to move from that once you've got it all out. I think sometimes we tend to want to just avoid those voices, and sort of think, okay, these are bad things and I shouldn't be hearing them. But
Yeah.
just acknowledging them, just taking a moment to say, okay, let's check in. What is it that I'm hearing and feeling?
Yeah.
And then saying, okay, I hear you, but I'm still going to do the thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's been a helpful thing that I've learned probably last 5 years, although I think it also connects back to meditation and mindfulness and just being like not resisting what's already happening and kind of having a sense of acceptance about like, I'm not going to feel like this is going to be, part of me is not going to feel comfortable with what I'm doing because it's scary. And like, that's just going to be kind of how it is, and accepting it. Often also just kind of like de-escalates that spiral so that it can be like, okay, I can take a breath and keep going and know that like, and now I have the experience too to know that like sometimes that voice is very off base with what it thinks is happening. Like it just really does not know how people are going to react to what I'm making. And it turns out like, oh, it's really connecting with people. And, you know, but that voice is like, this is terrible. Definitely don't do that. You know, so.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little extra.
Yeah, definitely extra and not so helpful. So I've gotten better with that spin out kind of place I could get to in the middle of a project, though I think it still happens because I'm like, I have this great idea. It's going to be, I know I want to use these kind of shapes and this theme and these colors. And then I start working on it and I'm like, oh, this is not working. But I think you just can't imagine all of the things in your head that are going to actually happen once you start getting it out of your head and onto paper. It's just kind of emerges. You can't anticipate like how it feels when you look at it and then what other ideas you're going to get.
I was listening to someone speaking the other day, and she was saying that because we can't predict the future, there is never a right answer because you don't know what the future holds. Yeah. So she was saying the only thing that you can do is work to make an answer right.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I love that. So I keep reminding myself now, I mean, we can bring it back to our creative practice. If you put down a color and you think, that wasn't the right choice, you're going to have to work to make it the right choice, whether you're going to incorporate it in a different way or, you know, like you've just got to, you've done it now, make it right.
Yeah. 100%. That is something I'm very much relate to.
Yeah. So that's, as you were talking, that's what came up for me is, you know, you made me think about that again. And just, I think that's very much sort of how you are approaching your work at the moment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I will put something down and then I'll be like, oh gosh, doesn't feel quite right. But I just work with it and keep layering and going on top. And then eventually that over time, it just makes the piece richer. Like all of those little kind of mistakes, or I don't know if I would even necessarily call them that, but they add the texture and the richness to the painting. And yeah, I would sometimes when I was painting at home, I would be like working on something and my husband would be like, oh, I like it. Like, don't do anything. Just leave it. And I'm like, no, I'm going to paint over this whole entire thing. So that was kind of how I did definitely paint over a lot of paint. There's a lot of paintings that no one will ever see. So.
But you know, right? You know when something feels right. And sometimes it might look beautiful to people that are on the outside, but it just doesn't feel right, which
Yeah.
is, I think, sometimes even more important than how it looks.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Yes, and
Mm.
kind of getting that combination of emotional resonance and like
Mm.
the craft of it, and finding that marriage between those two.
Mm. Yeah.
It's a process, and it's like a stew. Maybe that's an analogy. It's like it has to cook for a long time until everything kind of comes together.
Yeah. I love that. A stew. That's a good one.
Yeah, like you put in, and I often think about in food metaphors, like the image has to have like, there's all the different components of the flavor, like the salty and the sweet and the um, sour and bitter, and the painting needs that combination of all of those components and to be balanced within each other, but also contrasting enough to make it seem interesting. So sometimes I think about it like that, like a salad, really.
Yeah.
Like a salad. So there's like the crunchy parts and the fruity part, or the dressing, like the brighter parts are the seasoning, but you also kind of need something unexpected in it to keep it interesting.
Thank you so much for chatting to us
Awesome.
today, Betsy. It has
Yeah.
been so interesting to hear your journey and your insights on creative practice, and just listening to you talk about how you can develop your practice. It's just been so inspiring. Thank you so
Good.
much.
I'm so glad. It's really fun to talk about.